68 अक्षर ये ना जानो, 68 तीर्थ सार, 8 संपदा थी परमाणु, 68 दातार, समरो मंत्र भलो नवकार, ये छे 14 पुरवनो सार। नवपद एना नवनिध आपे, भव भवना दुख कापे, वीर वचन थी हृदय व्यापे, परमतम पद आपे, समरो मंत्र भलो नवकार, ए छे 14 पुरवनो सार, समरो मंत्र भलो नवकार, ए छे 14 पुरवनो सार, एना महिमानो नहीं पार, एनो अर्थ अनंत अपार, एना महिमानो नहीं पार, एनो अर्थ अनंत अपार, समरो मंत्र भलो नवकार, ए छे 14 पुरवनो सार, समरो मंत्र भलो नवकार, ए छे 14 पुरवनो सार।
Pranam, Jai Jinendra to everybody. I've been away for some weeks now, and I'm glad to be back with this new topic that we are starting today. My apologies for the delay in restarting this particular topic that I know many of you may have been waiting for. And thank you to those of you who made the suggestion about the topics that we could start off with once we when we were ending the previous course, the previous topic. So let's start with the Pratna as usual, and welcome everybody. I know that you all enjoyed the 3 sessions on Bhaktamar Stotra by Dr. Vinodbhai Kapasi, and I've been getting feedback that they were very well attended and received by everybody who was participating. So thank you all very much for maintaining the interest. So the Prarthana now. Namo Ariyantanam, Namo Siddhanam, Namo Ayariyanam, Namo Vajjayanam, Namo Loe Sabba Sahunam, Eso Panchanamukkaro Sabba Pava Panasano, Mangalanancha Sabvesim Padmam Havai Mangalam. Namo Ariyantanam, Namo Siddhanam, Namo Ayariyanam, Namo Vajjayanam, Namo Loe Sabba Sahunam, Eso Panchanamukkaro Sabba Pava Panasano, Mangalanancha Sabvesim Padmam Havai Mangalam. Namo Ariyantanam, Namo Siddhanam, Namo Ayariyanam, Namo Vajjayanam, Namo Loe Sabba Sahunam, Eso Panchanamukkaro Sabba Pava Panasano, Mangalanancha Sabvesim Padmam Havai Mangalam. आदिमं पृथ्वीनाथ मादिमं निष्परिग्रहम् आदिमं तीर्थनाथं च ऋषभस्वामिनं स्तुमः सुधा सोदरवागज्योत्स्ना निर्मलीकृतदिम्मुख मृगलक्ष्मा तमसान्त्ये शान्तिनाथ जिनोस्तु वः कमठे धरणेन्द्र च शोचितं कर्म कुर्वति प्रभुस्तुल्य मनोवृत्ति पार्श्वनाथ श्रियेस्तु वः कृतापराधेऽपि जने कृपामन्त्रतारयो इस्तपास्पार्दयोर्भद्रं श्रीवीरजिननेत्रयो मङ्गलं भगवान् वीरो मङ्गलं गौतमप्रभु मङ्गलं स्थूलिभद्राद्याय जैनधर्मोऽस्तु मङ्गलम् अंगूठे अमृतवसे लप्तितणा भण्डार श्री गुरु गौतम समर्ये मनवांछित फलदातार। Okay, So it's an auspicious time to start this new course. We are, as you all know, currently on the second day of the Chaitra Mas Aimbil Oli. So today is the day of Siddh Bhagwant. The first day is the day of Arihant Paramatma. As you all know, the 9 days Aimbil Oli celebrates, and there is a whole set of uh, kriyas that need to be done for those who are observing Aimbil uh, as prescribed, for those who for whom it is possible. So Jayesh Bhai uh, probably talked about Arihant yesterday and Siddh today. So let's start with today's topic. But as per the message that was shared with you all by Sandeep Bhai yesterday, I'm hoping that this class is very interactive, that this whole course requires a lot of attention, and I am sure that you will all be working hard in the background, searching for material and thinking about what you've learned every week. It would help a lot if you could all participate actively. Sorry, the volume is very low, Sushila Ben says. Let me just. Is that better?
Yes, I think
Yeah,
it is.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right. So, as I was saying, I think it's important that uh, you feel free to ask any questions. There may be questions that I cannot answer, so we may have to go back and uh, search for answers to those questions. But I'll try my best. Whatever question you have, don't, we are all learning here, and no question is a silly question. Whatever you do not understand, please feel free to ask. And if you have an understanding from what I have said that you are not sure is the right understanding, please do let us know, do let me know. And I'm perfectly happy for any one of you to actually interrupt me in the middle of the class anytime so that we can move forward from that point onwards. There is no set time limit for the topics that we need to cover as part of this course on Nav Tatva. So the aim is for everybody who is participating to be able to grasp this fundamental uh, learning that is considered to be essential. So just a background, I mean, I've not gone through any formal teaching, but if you go to Pathsalas in India and wherever there are traditional Pathsalas running and there are able children who are students, and there are, I've come across 9-year-olds and 10-year-olds who have already studied the basic sutras. So the basic sutras that are taught and that are expected to be uh, learnt by heart include Panch Pratikramana, meaning all the sutras that are useful in Pratikramana, include it includes Jiv Vichar, it includes Nav Smaran, so those are the all the auspicious prayers and Bhaktamar is a prominent prayer in those Nav Smaran. So Panch Pratikama, Nav Smaran, Jeev Vichar, and Nav Tatva. And then there are other advanced karma granths, advanced literature that people learn by heart. So the method of learning is to uh, learn the basic sutra or the gathas, and then learn the meanings, and then in depth discuss them with the Guru Bhagwans. So what I am going to be sharing with you is what uh, I am studying or I am learning. I do not know the full the sutra, but there are texts that will actually give us the sutra as well. But we won't be going through that route because one, I do not have the capacity and I've not had the background learning, and I do not have the knowledge to that depth. But what I know, I will share with you all. And if any one of you has got a greater understanding, then please feel free to share that with us. In terms of interaction, I think the system can actually accommodate many more of you switching on your videos. You don't need to switch on your audio unless you want to speak, but it may help you, and definitely it may help other people if this class, which is online, we understand, but if it works more like an in-person class, then I think you may all find it quite useful. If you don't want us to see the room in which you are sitting, like me, if you can switch on a background video effects, it will actually show you any nice colors that you may want to share with the rest of us. Okay, having started that preparation, thank you all. We are switching your videos on. If my volume goes down anytime, please feel free to just remind me. So I'll make sure that I'm speaking as loudly as it's best for everybody. Right. Now, Tattva, we all know now means 9 and Tattva means Tattva. And we'll come to the meaning of that term. Let me share my slides now. The study of Nav Tattva is a study of the fundamental truths about ourselves and the reality and the nature of us as Jeev, and the teachings come from our omniscient and Vitarag Arihant Devs. So, apologies for a combined our and omniscient. Omniscient is Kevali, meaning somebody who has complete knowledge. So there are no gaps in the knowledge, and that there is nothing in the universe that is unknown to them. So Vitrag, meaning there is no attachment and there is no hatred. They are completely impartial and they are completely free of any passions of any kind. and their whole purpose is for the emancipation of all life, for which they have immense compassion. And that is the nature of our Tirthankar Paramatmas. So the teachings come from our Tirthankar Paramatmas, the Arihant Devs. Through them, from them, through our Nirgranth Gurus, who are the followers of the path laid out by our Tirthankar Paramatmas, and who follow the path with dedication and with devotion and fully follow what has been taught in the Guru Parampara. So, our Nirgranth Guru Bhagwans, and through them, what has been passed down in our scriptures. Now, so in summary, the Nav Tattvas are the source of this knowledge is from our Tirthankar Paramatmas. The text that is sort of used, I mean, there are many different texts which look at all the Nav Tattvas in greater detail, but the common text that is taught is Nav Tattva Prakaran. There is a Gujarati version translation from the Yashuviji Jain Sanskrit Pathsala, which is a very useful book and has been around for probably 50, 70, 100 years. I mean, the Gujarati version. The original text is probably very, very old. I don't know exactly when that particular text Shastra was written, but the knowledge has been passed on from every Tirthankar Paramatma, and for us, the last 24th Tirthankar Paramatma, Bhagwan Mahavir. The word Tattva is composed of the word, again, apologies, THE, not THW, the word Tat and the extension Tva. Tat means that, meaning the universe in the Lok and Alok. And Tva refers to its nature or its root. Tattva also implies the truth of what helps the Jeev realize its true nature. So it is not just about the knowledge, but it's about the knowledge of self and a guidance on how to reach that by this understanding. So one of the aspects that we will focus on during the course is that out of these 9 tattvas, they are divided into 3 categories. I don't have a slide on that, but we'll be coming back to that. So don't worry if you don't, if you're taking notes and you are not able to. But these 3 concepts are Hey, Gne, Upade. So these 9 tattvas are divided into Hey means what you have to leave, meaning what you have to actually discard. Gnei is what one has to learn. Gnei means that which is for knowledge, that is to be understood. And Upadei is what you have to implement in your life to get to that ultimate state. So that is another way of looking at these 9 tattvas. Those which you discard, those which you adopt and implement, and those that you know. Okay. The knowledge of Nav Tattva aims to answer these questions. And I know when we started our classes, those are some of the exact questions that we started exploring. But here there is much greater depth, and we'll be exploring them bit by bit. So the first fundamental question is, who am I? And the answer is Jeev Atma. What is my true nature? It is described as that we are Satchidanand, Chetana Lakshan with Upyog, meaning that I am alive, that I am aware, that I know. And that is the fundamental quality of life. So every life is aware, every life is able to process, able to understand what is going on around it. So if you look at this pen has no awareness. This computer at which we are talking about has no awareness, even though the program is recording that particular this particular class, and that recording would be available. Some of us might argue that if we have AI, then it can, or even some programs can interpret what is going on and spill out a narrative, but it does not have life in it. So no matter how far we develop computers, self-awareness of its true nature is not something that can be created. Those of you who are fans of science fiction may have come across various narratives and writers who are arguing or are talking about robots, and there is always this level of understanding that ultimately self-awareness may become possible for robots or computers, but that is something that is beyond imagination, and that is something which is, according to all that we know, is never going to be possible. So my nature is that of Satchid Anand, that I am aware, that I am Chetan, and I have Upyog. If that is my true nature, why am I like this? Meaning, why am I not always happy? Satchidanand mean I am the truth, I exist. Why at that time then I am occupying a body which has limitations, which has experiences that are different for different people, which has experiences of periods of happiness, periods of sadness, periods of pain, and an ultimate demise. Why am I like this? I am aware of who I am. I am, and our identification with this body and with everything around us is so tightly ingrained in us, so deeply ingrained in us, that the soul does not remember its true nature. And in this day and age, when we talk about materialism and when the whole scientific thinking is suggesting that the nature of awareness is a function of the way the DNA has been programmed, and is through evolution that life appeared in this universe at a certain time, and that was spontaneous, and that spontaneous appearance of life and its subsequent progress, evolution, and development has resulted in where we are now, and there is hope that that will continue to expand. But what it is saying, that particular line of thinking, is that life appeared at a certain time in the past. The other part of that narrative that is opposite to that, that it's not something that appeared out of just the way things happened, but that there was a creator. And that is a belief, according to Islam, Christianity, and some other faiths, that God created life and the whole universe. Again, that is something that line of thinking has its own logical issues about who then created the God and why did God need to create this imperfect world. So, all those narratives are around us, but if you look at us personally, this firm belief and association with the world around us and what is happening in our lives on a daily basis, what's happening in our bodies on a daily basis. So, if we look deeply, our identification with the body, with relations, with things, with the world around us, and everything that goes on inside that world, all the ups and downs, is so great that most of the time throughout the day, we are actually not aware. In fact, for most of us, we are never really aware of our true nature because we've not reached that level of spiritual progress that gives us that understanding and that knowledge of the distinction between who we truly are and what we are associated with as a result of our association with karmas. Now, so in many ways, materialism has existed for all of us forever. The way forward and the path that the Nav Tattvas and all our Shastras and the efforts that our Tirthankar Paramatmas made to establish the religious order and what our Guru Bhagwans are trying very, very hard on a daily basis to actually convey that to us. The effort that is made is for us to realize our true nature and for once understand who we are. And when we reach that particular state, as we've discussed in the past, the moment that that realization opens up, that realization actually surfaces, then the path to spiritual progress is set. And that realization is what's called samyaktva. In the universe, essentially, there are two elements. So there is life and non-life. So in reality, there are just two tattvas, life and non-life. Okay? But then for us to understand that in greater depth, this is how it is described as 9 tattvas. But there are some texts where you will actually hear about or read about 7 tattvas, where punya and pap are incorporated in ashram. You probably all heard of Tattvarth Sutra. which is the sutra that is accepted by all the different sects of Jain Dharma. It was written by Umaswati Maharaj. There is a very good English translation written by Dr. Natmal Taita many years ago and published by with the help of the Institute of Jainology. And this is actually fairly uh, easily readable uh, English version of Tattvarth Sutra, and that is considered to be a fundamental text that will help us understand a lot of this. What the Tattvarth Sutra says is Tattvarth Sraddhanam Samyak Darshanam. So, faith in what is Tattva is the beginning of the right achieving the state of belief and acceptance in the truth and the realization which is called Samyak Darshan. Tattvarth Sraddhanam Samyak Darshanam is the path to liberation, moksha, nirvana, and the soul's final destination. Okay. So, the names of the 9 tattvas. Jeev, Ajeev, the Gatha says this: Jiva Jiva Purnam Pava Sabba Samvaro Ya Nijjarana Bando Mukho Yataha Navatatta Hunti Nayava. The nine tattvas are Jeev, Ajeev, Punya, Pap, Ashrav, Samvar, Nirjara, Bandh, and Moksha. We said earlier that there are 2 elements in the universe, Jeev and Ajeev, so life and non-life. And we can all understand that. So Jeev is the soul, Ajeev is non-life, that which does not have awareness, that which is just material. Punya is good karmas, Pap is bad karmas. Ashrav is the roots by which karma enters the soul space. So influx of karmas, and the reasons for that are mithyatva, meaning wrong understanding, wrong belief about our true nature and about the right Tirthankar Paramatma, the right Devs, the right Guru, the right Dharma. So mithyatva is one of the most important uh, routes by which karma enters the soul space. Samvar is that which stops the influx of karmas. Nejara is the destruction of accumulated karmas. Bandh is the binding of karma with the soul, and moksha is the state of the soul when all karmas are destroyed. We'll come back to all of this in greater detail, but very simply, it would be useful for all of you to remember these 9 terms: Jeev, Ajeev, Punya, Pap, Ashrav, Samvar, Nijra, Bandh, and Moksha. They're fairly simple words. Jeev, Ajeev, Punya, Pap is something that most of you have heard and are familiar with, even though it's in Gujarati. The words that may be new and difficult are Ashram, Samvar, Nijra, Bandh. You've all heard of Moksha. So some of The names are familiar, some are unfamiliar, but we'll try and understand them. These other words, I mean, Jeev, Ajeev, Punya, Pap is something that you will, any person who understands uh, Gujarati, Hindi, Sanskrit would be familiar with those. The words Ashrav, Samvar, Nirjara are something that probably most people who are not familiar with Jain Dharma may not have heard of it, but if they have a knowledge of Sanskrit Prakrit, they would be able to discern the meaning of those, I expect. And moksha is something, that word is fairly common. Moksha is a word that I think has found its way in the English dictionary as well. So moksha is something that is fairly familiar to a lot of people. Now, how do we understand this? There is a very beautiful that beautiful way in which all these concepts are explained, and the analogy, the metaphor that is used is actually very beautiful. So let's spend the next 10-15 minutes on understanding this picture. So hold on to this picture. We'll be referring to this again and again because this sets the scene for all our future classes. And I'd like you to sort of remember this. If you want, I can ask Sandeepai to uh, send this picture across. I couldn't actually find it with the English writing. It's the words are in Hindi here, but those of you who know Gujarati may not find it difficult to understand. But let's start with this picture. The picture tells us, and the metaphor is that we are all travelers, musafir. That is the word. You can see a man in a boat next to a palm tree on the banks of a huge ocean. So the ocean is the ocean of sansar, of the ocean of our cycle of life and death. And the traveler is Jeev. The traveler is us, the soul. And the traveler has entered the boat. What is the boat? The boat is the body, or the traveler is actually in the body. And it is important that the traveler depicted here is a human being, because this journey to moksha, to the ultimate goal, number 9, so the last picture in this set, the ultimate journey is only possible for the soul in that particular body. So the soul associated with the body is trying to cross this ocean with the help of this boat. It's a sailing boat. So he enters that. As he sets off, in his journey, there may be elements that would help his journey, make it faster, make it more comfortable, make him reach his destination in quicker way. So this is not about physical comfort. This is about the nature of the journey and the journey itself towards moksha for the soul in the most beneficial way. So what is being described here is, the word says Anukul Pavan, meaning good winds that would help fill up the sail so that the boat can travel to its destination faster and without any difficulty. That is punya, that is number 3, the top line. Then the journey sometimes takes a bad turn. There's a storm brewing. There are lots of difficulties. The You can see that that tree is blowing away, and there are strong winds in the opposite direction, and there is a possibility that the boat will not make it, and the man may get lost. So he is in difficulty. So the Anukud Pavan is Punya, the Pratikud Pavan, meaning that which is not conducive to good progress, is Pap. As the boat is traveling, there is a constant risk that there may be holes that develop at the bottom of the boat and let the water in. Now, these holes are ashrav. So they let the water in, which then threaten to sink the boat because the boat cannot float when it is full of water. So ashrav is those holes that will allow the influx of karmas. The man is wise. He begins to realize that it is not going to be possible for him to continue with this journey if his boat keeps on getting heavier and heavier with more and more water, because sooner or later it's going to sink, and he will sink with it and he will get lost in the ocean. So because he's wise and he understands, and he has the understanding of the true nature of the soul and what he should do to ensure that it is well protected, he knows how to block those holes that are at the bottom of his boat and to stop that influx of karmas. So, Samvar is the next panel, that is the 6th panel. At some stage, when he begins to realize, and even normally, when his understanding becomes good enough, he is in a position to start emptying the boat of the water that is accumulated and make it lighter. So he gets rid of all that water that is accumulated bit by bit. That is Nirjara. So he is emptying the boat. Give me 1 second. I'm going to stop the share in a minute. Okay. So the man is making an active effort to empty the boat of that accumulated water. Now, that accumulated water is something that is incorporated and not only makes the boat heavy, but the man with it is obviously laden with these karmas which have accumulated and bound to his soul. And the word that is describing this particular association, Atmana Pradesho અને કર્મનું દૂધ પાણીની જેમ એકમેક થઈ જવું એ જે સ્વભાવ છે. So the band is that the karmas get incorporated within the soul. So that accumulation of karmas and then that binding of those karmas to the soul is what needs to be concentrated on and uncoupled. So when the soul begins to realize its true nature, then that association with the bound karmas is loosened and the karmas fall off. But that bandh happens every time the soul engages in all the reasons why karmas get attracted and then bound. So there are processes that go on and are going on in every samay, every millisecond of our existence, non-stop. That process of binding karma, discarding karmas, attracting karmas, trying to stop karmas, all those processes are going on with all the activities that go on in our mind, in our speech, in our body, and everything in the state of our soul and the subconscious mind on a regular basis. And then if this man is gradually successful and progresses on his spiritual path, particularly with respect to samvar, meaning stopping the influx of karmas, nirjara, getting rid of the accumulated karmas by performing tap of any kind, particularly abhyantar tap, then slowly the boat gets lighter, the man gets lighter, he is approaching his final destination. He has sight of the final destination, as you can see there. And then ultimately, when he reaches the final destination, he is where he's meant to be. He is in his true element. He is not bound or attached or dependent on anything for his own existence and his own experience of complete happiness, complete knowledge, and complete compassion with every other life in the universe. So its true nature of the soul is then achieved, and that is moksha. And these are so it's basically the Nav Tatva is about the soul's journey from where it is to moksha. And in us understanding these nine tattvas, what we will learn is will teach us the various aspects of each of these elements that we will learn. It also teaches will teach us about what is important, what is important to learn and know about what out of these 9 elements we should actually not entertain and try and stay away from it if we desire that we achieve our true state as quickly as possible. And it will tell us what is dangerous for us, what will actually pull us down further, will make it very difficult for us to find our way out of this ocean and reach our destination, and what will make it possible for us to keep on getting drowned in this ocean as we have been for times immemorial. So, forever in the past, we have tried to travel this ocean, but we get so engrossed with everything else that's around us that we forget our true nature and continue to enjoy the scenery. But in that enjoyment, forget that part of that experience also involves death. Part of that experience also involves getting drowned in this ocean of life and death. Part of that experience also includes extreme pain, as in seventh narak. Part of that experience also includes a state of almost non life in Nigod, meaning that your self awareness is at the minuscule level, at the lowest possible level. And that is a journey that we have been on forever in the past. And the fact that a human birth makes it possible to actually get to that state. So it is not possible for any devs to reach moksha in that life. It is impossible for anybody in Narak to reach moksha. It's impossible for any animal, any plant, any one sensed life to actually progress on to moksha. It is only possible in a human birth when the soul occupies a human body. And again, that is only possible at certain times. So, at the moment in this Bharat Kshetra where we are and the time that we are in now, it is impossible, as you know, but the doors to moksha are open from Mahavidya Kshetra. Okay, we are exactly at 9 o'clock. Now, that was the last slide for today. You introduced the subject. I'm going to stop sharing here now and let's open up for some debate. And I will look to my colleague Bharat Bhai to add anything if there is uh, anything that you'd like to expand on, Bharat Bhai.
I think we've covered the basics.
Thank you. If there's anything else that I've missed or needs to be corrected, please feel free. Any questions, any observations, or any thoughts? Neera, you got a question?
No, not a question. I was just coming on to say if anyone has any questions to raise their hands and unmute themselves.
Yeah. Feel free. Don't hesitate. I'm sure a lot of you have listened carefully, and there must be some things that you may be struggling with or want to say anything. So don't worry if and then we're perfectly happy if you want to share your thoughts in Gujarati or English or any other language. Not that I know of anything else except Hindi, but uh, feel free.
Ajitbhai Pranam.
Ram Nick.
You mentioned Abhyantar Tap.
Mm-hmm.
I'm ignorant. You'll have to explain that to me, please.
Okay. So I said Nirjara, particularly with Abhyantar Tap. So Nirjara is the element when we get rid of the accumulated karmas. So the karmas are shed from the soul, and the route to that is through tap of any kind, and the tap that is uh, conducted are of two varieties. They are called Baya and Abhyantar. Baya is that which is visible to others. So Upas, Aimbel, Ekasno. So others know what you are doing. That you, if you suffer in silence and you accept certain things, that begins the basic Abhyantar Tap. But this is as a result of choice. It's not something. So if you are starving or if you are very poor and cannot afford a meal, then that does not count as tap. Even if you skipped a meal and you've not eaten for 3 days, or you skipped several meals. But with the intention and the determination to avoid eating because you are trying to get to your true state of anahari, meaning that the soul does not require food, and you remember that and you are trying to achieve that, then all these other baya tap is what is visible. So there are 6 categories of that, and we'll come to that in greater detail. And there are 6 categories of Abhyantar Tap. Abhyantar Tap is what happens within you, what happens inside your mind. So that is not something that is easily visible. So it is one of the Abhyantar Tap is Swadhyay. That's what we are trying to do, understanding our true nature or remembering some sutras and sastras. Then there is Kausag, then there is Dhyan. So these are Abhyantar Tap. Kausag is standing immobile and concentrating on certain aspect, concentrating on Naukar Mantra or Logas or anything else. So we have several Kausags during Pratikraman. Paichitam, Prayaschit, meaning recognizing what wrongs you've done and then asking for forgiveness and feeling sorry that you've done something that you're not supposed to do. Paichitam Vinao. Vinao means Vinay, meaning behaving in the correct manner to all those people around you and treating everybody with respect, but particularly treating those who deserve a higher level of respect, treating them in the most appropriate manner. So your Guru Bhagwans, our behaving correctly in Derasar, behaving correctly towards each other, to those who you should pay respect to worship. So all your teachers. So Paishitam Vinao Vyavacham. Vyavach is serving those who require help, particularly those who are following a higher order of life. So sadhu, sadhvi, shravak, shravika, helping them. Vyavacham tahev sajjao. Sajjao means sajjai, meaning swadhyay. Zanam ussago. Zanam is dhyan and ussago is kausag. So 6 different levels of six different types of abhyantar tap, and all that helps get rid of accumulated karmas. But all this can go on without us necessarily being in that state. So the thoughts and the processes that go on in our mind, and ultimately how that reflects what's going on in our soul, is what speeds up the process of getting rid of karmas. So that was in reference to nirjara, but we will come to all this in greater detail as we go along. Hope that helps.
Thank you for that. I got a little confused. We said that if we fast out of choice, that is not regarded as abhyantarta because it's visible to other people.
No. If we fast without choice, meaning that we are fasting because even though we want food, we are hungry, we are not consciously not eating, we are still seeking food. If you fast consciously, meaning that you have taken a vow that I'm going to do upvas today, that is a personal choice. You got plenty of food at home, but you decided that you are not going to eat. That is very different from not having food at home and therefore having to fast. So what I meant was that if you have taken a choice, you decided, and then you are fasting, that is bhaya tap.
It's bhaya tap, but what you said is to shred the karma, we need to do abhyantar tap. Or is that my misunderstanding?
No, both. I said both bhaya and abhyantar tap are important, but what I said was particularly abhyantar tap, because the bhaya tap is to help strengthen the abhyantar tap. So it's a process, the way they are divided. So what I'm mentioning are brief introductions to this. So in terms of the further depth, what I would urge everybody is to hold on to the concepts, but the details of this we will come to, and I understand that questions will arise as we go along, and I'm glad that you are asking that confusion, asking those questions that confuse you. But the both bhaya and abhyantar tap are important for nirjara, but ultimately the nirjara in terms of power. So you may have heard of this term in Gujarati, which says Gnani swaso swasma karmano karekshe purva kodi varsha lagi agnani karete. So what that refers to, that if you are doing, so if there is a tapas who for a very, very long time performs severe penance, then he may not necessarily get rid of karmas to lighten his soul. He may acquire a lot of punya that would actually give him a higher level of, say, material happiness in future lives. But the ultimate goal of the soul should be to get rid of karmas. Then the nirjara will happen more strongly and much faster with somebody, it says gnani swaso swasma. So somebody with the right knowledge, the right tools, and the right state of his soul gets rid of karmas with every breath he takes. So gnani swaso swasma karma no karekshe purva kodi varsha lagi agnani karete. So somebody who does not necessarily understand and has incorporated that learning within his soul may do a lot of tap, but not necessarily get rid of the karmas that takes him to the ultimate goal. He may acquire a lot of punya karma by this, but ultimately, for the soul to go to moksha, he has to shed not just punya karma, but also not just pap karma, but also punya karma.
Ajitbhai, can I add something on, please?
Yes, certainly.
Okay, right. You basically said two types, Bahya Tap and Abhyantar Tap.
Mhm,
And the Abhyantar Tap, you have actually said there are six types, which
mhm.
is Prashit, Vinay, Vayavach, Sajai, Dhyan, and
Kausak.
Kaushag or detachment, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the six types of Abhyantar Tap. So the Abhyantar Tap in its own right, it's much higher because it's internalized
Mhm,
and you're consciously doing it.
yeah.
Whereas the Bayatap is what people can see.
Mhm,
But I mean, the Bayataps are basically sort of things like uppas and things like that. That's the Bayatap that's you're doing.
yeah.
Okay. So the Abhyantatap, it's already says that it's because it's to do with Dhyan, so it's really detaching yourself from everything.
Yeah. And it's deeper, and Abhyantar Tap is meant to help you reach that stage as well. So just Abhyantar Tap without, because for those of, I'm sure most of people on this class have probably had some experience, but when you are fasting, your senses begin to quieten down, that your thought processes get more focused and internalized, your passions become more subdued. Though for some people, hunger can make you a bit more sensitive and upset and angry. That can happen when you are learning to uh, practice all these things. But by and large, when you are fasting, all your senses are subdued and your mind is more focused. So there is a level of calmness, and ultimately, Bayatap is meant to help you reach that stage of internal awareness and internal progress that ultimately gets rid of the bad, that gets rid of the karma. So nirjara happens much more powerfully. That is what that statement of Gnani Swaso Swasma Karmano Kareskshe.
Ajit bhai, just I know we're running out of time, but very quickly, not for today,
Yeah.
but it's like putting the cat amongst the pigeons here.
Yeah.
You've mentioned Gnani and Agnani quite a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So Gnani is knowledge.
Yeah.
Now, the thing that's kind of I'm struggling with is we are using appliances so much, anything. And I'm wondering because I've been given to understand that every single letter that we delete is doing ashatna of the Gnan. So basically, we're building up Gnana Varnya Karma. Now, in all these things that we're using, even in the process of attending these lectures and things, we get all the messages on WhatsApp and things, and eventually they all get deleted. So that's one aspect. The other aspect that I'm struggling is that I am also understanding that any photograph that you delete is like a jiv hatya. So basically, again, those are transferred, exchanged. So I mean, these are just photographs. And then when we've got photos of the murtis, like for darshan and things like that, they get deleted. I mean, how do we deal with all that?
Yeah. So I think part of the problem, yes, Smukbhai, you put the cat among the pigeons. Uh, there are a lot of difficulties with the way modern devices and the way the world works and the abundance of literature and means of actually accessing words and what goes on around us all the time. And ultimately, it's about balance. Ultimately, when we are referring to the word gnan and gnani, respect for knowledge is obviously the most important thing. And in all these processes that we are actually have to engage with in the way modern life is constructed, if you can maintain that level of respect and recognize that there are certain vagaries of our modern times that make it very difficult to do something else. But ultimately, the knowledge that is the most important and fundamental is the knowledge of self. So the ultimate gnan is the gnan of who we are. And not having that gnan and not knowing our true nature and not recognizing the processes by which that true nature is actually misconstrued, hidden away, falsely assigned, meaning our identification with the body, our identification with our loved ones, our identification that, so the fact is we all come alone, we go alone. But on a daily basis, we would identify ourselves with I am so and so. So the fact that I identify myself with this body that I occupy and my relationships, my profession, my degrees, my wealth, all those outside attachments is basically ignorance. And in terms of knowledge and ignorance, those are the most fundamental. So ultimately, at a spiritual level, what goes on within our soul is a very complex play of all these things that are going on. So the respect for knowledge and the disrespect that you're talking about that goes on within our lives on a daily basis, again, needs to be nuanced. It's difficult or impossible for any one of us to know what sort of gnana varniya karma we are all accumulating by all these. So there are lots of things. So I write down things and then I shred them regularly. We got letters that we constantly shred or we throw away. We recycle a lot of paper. So there are lots of written words that we are actually destroying on a regular basis. And that in itself may be pushing us towards accumulating a lot of karmas. It's impossible to say. But I think for us to progress is to learn as much as we can, do as much as we can to limit our activities in those directions which our Tirthankar Paramatmas have said are harmful to the soul, and feel sorry for those that we could not have any control over. So ultimately, that's all we can do to make our lives as best as possible in terms of following what we have been taught. And I understand that we all feel sorry of certain things, but what I would suggest is that we look at the bigger picture, we focus more on that, but we don't necessarily ignore the minor things. We try and do as much as we can with the minor things as we can. I hope that helps, but this is something that I'm sure we will visit again and again, and I'm sure there are lots of debates about it in the community as well. But thank you for raising it, Asmukbhai.
Ajitbhai, if there is time, I have one more question.
Yeah, Nick.
How do you see Dhyan and Kaushik?
Kausag is when you are focusing on certain sutras, say Naukar Mantra, Logas, or something else. And Dhyan is what goes on within your soul or subconscious level deeper down. So, Dhyan would be, I mean, if you look at the word Dhyan and the way it's described, so there are Artha Dhyan, Raudra Dhyan, which are bad dhyans, and Dharma Dhyan, Sukla Dhyan, which are good dhyans. Sukla Dhyan is the highest form of dhyan. But when you are performing dhyan, then you are focusing. So, for example, if we are sitting here or we are going through certain things that we are due to do or are bothering us, then in a way that is dhyan, that is arth dhyan. So, for example, I'm sitting here now and maybe I'm worrying about what I need to do after this class is over. There are thoughts that are going on in my mind. Says there are certain things that I've got to finish. There are certain tasks that I need to finish, or there are certain things that I need to sort out. And all those things that are going on, my mind is focused on those things. That is a kind of dhyan. That is to an extent artha dhyan. But then those thoughts begin to take a turn. I remember certain events that happened this morning and somebody who upset me. And as soon as I remember that, I feel upset myself. I get a bit angry and I begin to judge in my mind. I begin to work out what that person said and what was right and wrong with what that person said. And my thoughts turn towards a kind of animosity or anger towards that. That is dhyan as well. All this is not happening verbally or physically, it's all happening in my mind. But that is a powerful arth dhyan that is attracting karmas all the time. It goes further, it gets worse. And I feel so angry that I say, I'm going to give him a ring tomorrow and tell him off. Or I cannot control my anger and actually do that same night, and then we have a fight. And that can go on to becoming Raudra Dhyan, meaning my thoughts become more violent. Now that is Dhyan that is accumulating a huge amount of bad karmas. But then things turn, things change. I stop myself. I say, oh, hang on, where are you going? What is this route that you're taking? That is wrong. That person did nothing wrong. What he said that upset you was your misunderstanding. It's not his fault. Forgive him. And then my mind calms down. And then I begin to think about what our Tirthankar Paramatmas have said and said that control your anger, don't lose your attention on yourself, don't lose your awareness of yourself, see who you are. All these other external circumstances are not you, they're not important. And my mind becomes calmer, the state of my soul improves, and that is Dharma Dhyan. So there are various types of Dharma Dhyan, Agna Vichaya, meaning what has Paramatma said, that is Dhyan. So it is in many ways the state of the soul, and that kind of Dhyan is going on all the time. most of the time for us, it's Artha Dhyan, Raudra Dhyan. Artha Dhyan because constantly, day in and day out, we are thinking, planning, organizing, sorting, and all those thoughts are going on in our mind. And all those activities of the mind are attracting karmas, are allowing influx of karmas, are then binding karmas, and the better thoughts are getting rid of the karmas as well. Does that help, Nick?
It helps. I guess I was translating dhyan as meditation.
Yeah, no, I understand. But what I'm trying to say is that dhyan in a wider sense is also what goes on all the time. And us sitting down in meditation, calming our minds and focusing strongly on removing all these other external thoughts. So in some ways, the scenarios that I've described when dhyan is going on and what then happens. So what is taught in sort of say classes where the dhyan is being taught is that you learn to focus on either one thing, you are taught to calm your mind down, to maybe let it float, don't try to control it, and then slowly letting it focused. So ultimately, the result of that practice is that you become calmer, that you're more able to focus, and that calmness and that awareness is what is described as dhyan. So there are many different types of dhyan that are described, and there are very different methods. But ultimately, if you are looking at dhyan as it is described in terms of, say, this context, say, adhyatma, we're talking about Artha Dhyan, Raudra Dhyan, Shukla Dhyan, Dharma Dhyan. So there are 4 types of dhyan that are described. And again, that term dhyan is used in that context as well, with respect to accumulation of karmas and what's going on.
Okay, it does explain. As I said, I was translating
Yeah, no, I
dhyan as
understand.
purely meditation.
Yeah.
And for me, kayotsag was to a certain degree meditation as well.
It is. And one can shift into the other. So when you are, say, doing a Kausak Dhyan, so the term Kausak Dhyan is also used, then you're reciting Naukar mantra and you're focusing on that, and your subconscious, your internal self, your soul begins to calm down and is very, very focused. So those processes are interchangeable, if I understand correctly. Bharat Bhai might have something to add. Bharat Bhai?
I think you've covered it. I mean, I just would like to add that when you do kayotsag, kayotsag means kayani utsag. You are separating your mind from the mind from the soul in a way, and basically you are going into a position of stillness of the body. So that means you come to you do a kind of a dhyan as you said, but you are at that point you're detaching yourself, your body, from your soul. And as per dhyan, it also means meditation. But dhyan in the broader sense, I mean, we are always doing dhyan. We are always doing some sort of dhyan, and that the 2 types of dhyan that keeps us in sansar or in transmigration is Artha Dhyan and Rodra Dhyan. And we are always, I mean, 90%, 95% of the day we spend in Artha Dhyan and Rodra Dhyan. Artha Dhyan meaning, that which, brings us sorrow. And Rodra Dhyan is where we have, ill feelings about anybody else. So if anybody gets into a bad situation and if you don't like him, you feel happy about it. That is Rodra Dhyan. And when we talk about Dharma Dhyan and Shukla Dhyan, I mean, those are the two dhyans which will take us away from the samsara. We will break the cycle of death and birth.
Thank you
Okay,
very
I understand that. What we said is on a day-to-day basis, every minute we are in some sort of a dhyan.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, the only time I see that one is subconscious dhyan and one is conscious dhyan. My sansaric dhyan is subconscious, whereas if I did dharma dhyan or shukla dhyan, it would then become a conscious dhyan. Would that be fair to say?
See, I mean, Bharat Bhai, please add something, but just very quickly, Nick, what, as Bharat Bhai said, Kayotsarg means Kaya no Utsarg, and he related the body as well as the mind to the Kaya, and basically detaching yourself. So, dhyan in terms of a deeper level, not just your mind, because the mind is also a construct of matter. Beyond that is the soul, the state of your soul, and that is upyog, that is the state of the soul in terms of parinati, meaning exactly what's going on. And that is something that is quite difficult to distinguish and grasp. And again, it is something that would be quite difficult to describe because it is ultimately a matter of experience. And I think some time ago when we had somebody from Dharampur on this class, there was that particular topic that was raised, and I think Bharat Bhai, let me know the lady who took one of these classes. What was her name?
Smriti ji.
Smriti ji, and she answered that particular question very well. I mean, I don't remember the clarity with which she explained this particular concept, but she covered it very well. And it was in response to a question that I asked about how do you distinguish parinati and upyog. And she explained that very well. But ultimately, we are talking about very different levels. And I think let's give it a bit more time, Nick. We will ultimately explore more in depth this particular question. But Bharat Bhai has got a lot of experience with some of the other uh, classes and a lot of the other sort of experiences. Bharat Bhai, would you like to add anything?
I suppose when we talk about dhyan, I mean it's a very wide subject for to start with. But basically, the dhyan, as in what Nick asked earlier. I mean, dhyan really means the real dhyan is you're going inwards. When you're thinking of the qualities of your soul. Whereas what dhyan, what we do, I mean, we do these kinds of dhyan, artha dhyan, rodha dhyan, dharma dhyan, and shukla dhyan. They're all done, with the help of our mind. But really speaking, when we even separate these dhyans from our soul, and that is the upyog which we need to ultimately purify, I mean, and our parinity.
Yeah.
That's I mean that's
Yeah. So that's why I use the term the state of your soul as distinct from the state of your mind, as distinct from the state of your body. So you must remember that there are three levels here. that which powers everything else is the soul. The mind is a construct of matter, so is the body. The soul, when it identifies itself with the mind and says, I am the mind, then that is a wrong association. When it identifies itself with the body, I am the body, I am somebody's father, mother, whatever, sister, brother, wife, that again is a wrong identification. So ultimately, when we begin to realize that distinction and that separateness, that is what happens. But just as a very quick example, when we talk about some great Muni Bhagwan, some stories that we've heard. So, for example, this is something that I've said many times before in other classes, and I'm sure most of you are aware. But just let's imagine what was happening with Metta Muni when that particular Soni tied a sort of a belt of leather which was wet on his scalp, his bare scalp, no hair there, and keeps on asking Mitaraj Muni to tell him where he has hidden the golden rice grains that he was making, which have disappeared because a bird has actually picked them up and swallowed them, thinking that those are rice grains. Mitaraj Muni is silent because if he tells this Soni, this jeweler, what has happened, then he will surely find that bird and kill him. To Mitaraj Muni, the life of the bird is just as precious as anybody else's life. For him, whatever happens is of no consequence because he has completely detached himself from his body and his mind. When the jeweler, the Soni, has tied that leather piece around and it starts drying in the sun, it shrinks and it's squeezing his skull like a very, very strong vice, and the skull starts cracking. Now, that itself process would be extremely painful. But is Metaraj Muni unhappy when that extreme pain he's subjected to is so intense? The answer is no, because to him it's his body where it is suffering the pain. And he's suffering that pain as a result, his body is suffering that pain, and he within that body is experiencing that pain. And that experience that he is suffering is as a result of his accumulated pap karma in the past. But he doesn't have a single thought of anger towards the Soni. All he is holding on to is this awareness and the compassion for the bird, and that he does not need to open his mouth and tell the Soni what he has to do. So he is willing to suffer this extreme pain and die in the process, and still with that pain he is not unhappy, because the state of his soul, which by nature is Sachitanand, is completely full of Anand, and he gets to that stage where his soul is completely then detached from all the karmas and his body. So when we are ultimately talking about that level of dhyan, that is Sukla dhyan, that he is arrived. But there the identification is with the soul. That is what we are talking about. I think let's end here today. But I'm glad that we have had about 40 minutes of debate, question and answer. This is ultimately what we want from the class. So thank you very much, Nick and Hasmukh Bhai and Bharat Bhai, for contributing your knowledge and understanding, which was extremely useful for me, as well as I'm sure Hasmukh Bhai and Nick, definitely. So let's continue this conversation next week. We'll meet again next Tuesday. I hope, Nick, that has helped a bit, but hopefully next week I'll share some texts and links to that you may be able to use. But there is a lot of material on the internet as well, and there are books that you can read. I'll share some of that next week.
Thank you very much. It's been very learning experience.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ajitbhai. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your extra time and everybody else's patience for staying on for an extra 45 minutes today.
Yeah. Thank you, Bharat Bhai, for your contribution as always, and your knowledge and your expertise. That helps me a lot as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ajitbhai. It was very, very good.
Okay. Jinagna virud kain par bolai hui tismi manochan kaya giri tasmichhami dukram. If I have said anything that is wrong and or against the teachings of our Tirthankara Paramatmas and our Shastras, I ask for forgiveness. Sarva Mangal Mangalyam Sarkalyan Karanam Pradhanam Sarvadharmanam Jainam Jaiti Sasanam. Have a good week, and those of you who are performing Aimbil, stay well, and Satamare Pada. Bye.
Jai Jinanda Pada Shata Maharaja. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.